secretly, but unable to hide it. Hidden love. Chapter 2. After gazing at her for a while, the young man appeared to recall something, and a glint of absurdity flickered in his eyes. Then, his interest was inexplicably piqued. He softened his expression, purposely lowered his voice, and murmured, Sang Zhi could no longer remain composed and was on the verge of breaking down. Did Mom and Dad agree? A few seconds of silence followed. The young man licked the corner of his lips, his words laced with a smile. As long as it looks good, isn't it fine? As soon as he spoke, Sang Zhi was once again rendered speechless. Compared to Sang Yan's voice, this one sounded clearer and more mellow. When speaking, the ending of each sentence was drawn out, lending a hint of ambiguity and tenderness to his words. It was a stark contrast to her brother's consistently cold and grating tone and manner. "Kid," he chuckled softly, continuing, "come over and see if your brother looks good." Instantly, Sang Zhi sensed that something was amiss. At that moment, a sound emerged from behind her. The door opened, followed by the thud of footsteps. Sang Zhi instinctively turned her head and immediately saw Sang Yan's face. The young man had broad shoulders and a narrow waist, appearing slightly thinner than a few months ago. His hair was damp, and a towel was draped over his shoulder, indicating he had just taken a shower. Upon noticing Sang Zhi, his lips curled into a smirk as he picked up a fork from the fruit plate in her hand, took a slice of watermelon, and walked inside. As if she had seen a ghost, Sang Zhi trembled and called out, "Brother? What's wrong?" Sang Yan glanced at her while taking a bite of the watermelon. "Did I impress you again with my looks?" "Aye," she stammered. Before she could finish, the young man behind her abruptly burst into laughter, interrupting Sang Zhi's words. Sang Zhi rarely felt so flustered and involuntarily looked in his direction. What she saw was an existence even more dazzling than the sunlight streaming through the window. The young man's brows and eyes softened, his appearance losing some of its coldness. The corners of his eyes were slightly upturned, and his light-colored gaze shimmered with flecks of light, exuding a spring-like charm. He looked like a captivating, enchanting male fairy. Sang Zhi's heart skipped a beat in that instant. It was as if she had been struck and easily ensnared. Thinking that he was being mocked, Sang Yan looked at the other party and said, "Duan Jia Xu, are you laughing at me?" Due to Sang Zhi's presence, Sang Yan refrained from finishing the sentence with the expletives he had intended to use. He changed the subject, picked up his phone from the side, opened the text message interface, and waved it in front of Sang Zhi. "Little brat, what mess have you gotten yourself into this time?" The screen displayed their recent conversation. That light-headed feeling vanished instantly, interrupted by Sang Yan. Sang Zhi immediately retorted, "I didn't get into any mess." Sang Yan stared at her, his eyebrows raised. "It's best if you haven't." Sang Zhi, needing his help, could only grit her teeth to speak. "But brother, I need a favor." There was an unfamiliar person present, so Sang Zhi glanced in his direction before looking back at Sang Yan, her eyes hinting at what she wanted to say but hesitated to voice it. Sang Yan pretended not to notice. Then the stranger spoke up, his tone full of interest. "Sang Yan, is this your sister?" Sang Yan walked over to the bed and sat down. "Who else could she be? My daughter?" In return, Sang Zhi asked, "Brother, who is this?" Sang Yan replied concisely, "My roommate, Duan Jia Xu." "Don't you recognize me?" Duan Jia Xu said. "Weren't you just calling me brother?" That remark made Sang Zhi recall her foolish thoughts from earlier. Her tense expression immediately crumbled, looking somewhat annoyed. Sang Yan let out a light snort. Quite affectionate. During this exchange, Duan Jia Xu had already walked up to Sang Zhi and crouched down in front of her. He gazed at her seriously, his light-colored eyes appearing both gentle and alluring. "My name is Duan Jia Xu. I'm your brother's friend." Sang Zhi turned her eyes away, her expression somewhat uneasy. "Oh." After seriously introducing himself to the young girl, Duan Jia Xu turned his head and resumed his usual casual demeanor. Sang Yan didn't even look up, continuing to play with his phone. Duan Jia Xu asked, "It seems you and I look similar?" "What kind of question is that?" Sang Yan stopped what he was doing and looked up. "Take a look in the mirror." Then, Duan Jia Xu took the fruit plate from Sang Zhi's hands. Why did this kiddo just ask me? After a brief pause, Duan Jia Xu chuckled again. If I got plastic surgery? There was silence. Then Sang Yan responded coolly. What do you mean? Brother. Fearing upsetting Sang Yan and losing his help in meeting her teacher, Sang Zhi hurriedly changed the subject. Didn't you say you weren't coming back? Little brat. Remembering Sang Zhi's earlier expression, Sang Yan said expressionlessly, Did you really think he was me? No. You thought he was a surgically altered version of me? How did you come up with that idea? Sang Yan, always overly confident, spoke with an upset and harsh tone. Me getting plastic surgery and ending up looking like him? Seeing him going on and on, Sang Ji's temper flared up as well. Isn't it natural that you'd want to look like him? Mom didn't tell me you were bringing a friend home. Anger brought Sang Zhi back to her true self, revealing her unruly nature. And since there was only this person in the room, isn't it normal for me to think that? Sang Yan impatiently dug at his ear. Lower your voice. Sang Zhi glared at him. Why should I lower my voice? I'm not disturbing anyone. The siblings faced off. Sang Yan showed no sign of yielding to his sister, continuing to stoke the fire. You're disturbing me. Seeing that the argument was escalating, Duan Jia Xu stepped in to calm the situation. He waved at Sang Zhi. Kid, come over and have some fruit. With his friend present, Sang Yan lost interest in bullying his perpetually defiant sister. He glanced at his phone and said to Duan Jia Xu, Do you want to take a shower before heading back to school? No need, Duan Jia Xu said. He took a piece of watermelon with a fork and held it out to Sang Zhi. Let's leave after finishing the fruits. Sang Zhi pressed her lips together and instinctively glanced at Duan Jia Xu. At that moment, the childish and embarrassing argument with Sang Yan replayed in her mind. Adding to it, this seemingly kind older brother had just casually exposed her humiliating actions. Feelings of grievance and unspoken emotions welled up inside her. She felt as if the whole world had just abandoned her. Her cheeks uncontrollably began to burn, becoming hot and flushed, and she felt a stinging sensation around her eyes. She started to feel very embarrassed. Sang Zhi silently took the piece of fruit, her nose feeling clogged as heat surged towards her face. She struggled to hold it back for a long time, but a sob still escaped her throat. Duan Jia Xu's movements paused. Sang Yan also heard it and looked up. You can't be serious. Those words seemed to work like magic. As soon as they were spoken, Sang Zhi's tears were unleashed, streaming down uncontrollably. Her suppressed sobs erupted, echoing through the room and spilling onto the floor. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know what part you like best. The two young men froze simultaneously. Hearing the noise, Li Peng immediately came in from the living room. What's going on? Sang Yan reacted quickly and shamelessly said, Duan Jia Xu, how could you bully my sister? Duan Jia Xu's expression stiffened. He had never encountered such a situation before and was at a loss for how to respond. He hadn't even fully realized if he was the one who made the young girl cry. But before he could offer an explanation, the next moment, Sang Zhi grabbed the hem of his shirt and hid behind him, looking especially frightened at Li Ping, still sobbing and pointing at Sang Yan with her other hand. Mom, whoa, brother. Li Ping turned to look at Sang Yan, her gaze icy. Sang Zhi's cries grew more pitiful. Brother hit me. The little girl cried with such grievance, her large tears falling like drops that seemed to hit one's heart. It was rare to see Sang Zhi cry like this, and Li Ping's heart immediately softened. She gently consoled Sang Zhi with a few kind words before her expression changed. She pulled Sang Yan into the living room to give him a stern talking to. The door opened and closed with their movements. The atmosphere cooled with one person gone. Sang Zhi let go of Duan Jia Xu's shirt, her sobs gradually subsiding. Duan Jia Xu turned to look at her. The young girl was still small, and her development wasn't as advanced as her peers. She wasn't even 150 centimeters tall, only reaching his chest. Her eyes were large and at this moment red and teary. She was still sniffing, looking very much like a little rabbit. She then took a pitiful bite of the watermelon. Her sobs stopped completely. Duan Jia Xu smiled and didn't ask why she had cried. He pulled 2 tissues from the box on the table. No more crying. With her tears gone, Sang Zhi's mood improved significantly, though a hint of shame lingered. She kept her head down and didn't speak. Due to their height difference, Duan Jia Xu had to bend down to wipe her tears with the tissues. Go wash your face in a bit. Sang Zhi, used to being taken care of like this, didn't shy away. In the silence, a thought suddenly popped into Sang Zhi's mind, a thought that would undoubtedly seem abrupt to a stranger. After thinking for a while, Sang Zhi hesitantly spoke up. Her voice, still soft and childish from having just cried, sounded especially endearing. Brother, are you leaving? Duan Jia Xu lifted his eyes and hummed in response. Why? Do you have time tomorrow? Tomorrow? Yes, Sang Zhi said quietly. Tomorrow. Duan Jia Xu chuckled. Why are you asking about my schedule? Since he didn't clearly say he was available, Sang Zhi found it difficult to explain. It's just, she couldn't come up with a good reason and eventually returned to her original question, this time adding a flattering tone. Brother, do you have time tomorrow? Duan Jia Xu lowered his eyes and lazily said, What if brother doesn't have time tomorrow? Sang Zhi panicked. That won't do. Having just offended Sang Yan, he surely wouldn't help her now. The only hope she had left was this person in front of her. She clenched her fists, threatening in a dry, desperate tone. You must be available. If you're not, I'll tell my mom that you both hit me, ganging up on me. Ganging up on her? Duan Jia Xu pulled the corner of his mouth slightly. Kid, why are you being unreasonable? Sang Zhi looked at him and said without confidence, I'm still young. I don't know the reason yet. All right. Duan Jia Xu, with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, said, First, tell me what you want to do tomorrow. Sang Zhi paused for a moment before hesitantly saying, Could you pretend to be my brother, like the blood-related one? Duan Jia Xu raised an eyebrow. And then tomorrow, she felt a bit embarrassed, her voice dropping to a whisper, Could you come to see my teacher? Duan Jia Xu understood. So you've been asked to bring a guardian? Sang Zhi fell silent, as if to confirm his guess. What is the reason? Remembering the reason she had come up with on the way home, Sang Zhi wasn't sure if he would believe them. She scratched her head and hesitated. Can I not say? That's fine. Before Sang Zhi could breathe a sigh of relief, Duan Jia Xu added nonchalantly, In that case, your brother is busy tomorrow. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know what part you like best.